In World War II, clean water was often more valuable than ammunition. Armies moved fast, supply lines broke, and soldiers found themselves drawing water from rivers, shell craters, melted snow, and improvised storage containers that would horrify modern health inspectors. Waterborne illness incapacitated entire units faster than enemy fire. Military planners understood a hard truth. Water did not just need to be found, it needed to stay safe long enough to be used. One of the lesser-known solutions was not a machine, a filter, or a chemical tablet, but salt. Used correctly and in combination with disciplined handling, salt became a powerful short-term stabilizer that helped keep stored water usable for days in field conditions. Why water spoiled so quickly in wartime environments? Stored water fails for three main reasons: microbial growth, contamination during handling, and heat. In World War II camps, water was often kept in canvas bags, metal canteens, or open barrels. Even water that was initially safe could become dangerous within just a few hours if bacteria multiplied. Boiling was not always practical. Fuel was limited. Movement was constant. Commanders needed a method to slow biological activity long enough to bridge the gap between purification opportunities. Now, how salt interferes with microbial growth rather than killing outright. Salt does not magically purify water, and World War II engineers knew this. What salt does is create osmotic stress. When small amounts of salt are introduced into water storage, many bacteria struggle to reproduce. Their internal processes slow down. Growth rates drop. This does not make contaminated water safe to drink indefinitely, but it can delay spoilage significantly. In practical terms, salt bought time. How the military actually applied the salt trick in the field. Salt was never used randomly. Field manuals describe adding controlled, minimal amounts of salt to water containers that had already been boiled or drawn from relatively clean sources. The salt was dissolved fully, not dumped in excess. The goal was not to make brine, but to slightly increase salinity beyond what microbes preferred. Containers were then sealed and shaded. This combination could keep water usable for several days longer than untreated storage. Why this method worked best with metal and ceramic containers? Salt-treated water performed poorly in porous containers. Now, canvas absorbed moisture and, introduced contaminants. Metal canteens and enamel-lined vessels, on the other hand, limited recontamination. This is why armies, standardize container materials alongside treatment methods. The salt trick was never a standalone solution. It was part of a system that included container discipline and handling rules. Now, let's consider how navies use salt differently in maritime environments. Naval forces, you see, faced unique challenges. Fresh water stored aboard ships could, stagnate during long voyages. Small amounts of salinity were already present due to spray and condensation. Navies, they carefully controlled salt levels to suppress microbial growth without making water undrinkable. This was monitored closely as excess salt caused dehydration. The practice was temporary and carefully measured, not just some casual improvisation. So, why did salt work when refrigeration and chemicals just weren't available? Well, back in the 1940s, portable refrigeration simply didn't exist for infantry. Chemical purification tablets, were still evolving and honestly not always trusted. Salt, on the other hand, was universal, stable, lightweight, and already included in rations. It needed no special equipment at all. It didn't degrade over time. And in emergencies, it gave a predictable effect that soldiers could count on, especially when under stress. So, let's talk about how this knowledge can actually be applied safely today. You see, there are, modern scenarios where salt can be used for water preservation. The historical lesson here, really, is not to drink salted dirty water. It's actually about water management. In modern emergencies, salt can be used as a temporary stabilizer after water has been boiled or filtered, especially if storage conditions are, less than ideal. Just remember, a very small amount, fully dissolved, combined with sealed storage and cool temperatures, can slow spoilage for short periods. It's a simple step, but it can make a difference. This is not a replacement for proper purification. It's a holding strategy, just as it was in World War II. That's why, this trick required discipline to avoid harm. Excess salt intake is dangerous. World War II manuals stressed restraint and measurement. Salted water was often rotated out or reboiled before use. Soldiers were trained not to rely on taste alone. This was a controlled process, not folklore. The salt trick reflects a broader World War II mindset. Engineers and medics, focused on slowing failure rather than achieving perfection. Modern emergencies often mirror wartime chaos. Power fails, clean containers run out, water sources degrade. Knowing how to slow contamination, even temporarily, can make the difference between illness and endurance. The World War II salt trick reminds us that survival knowledge is not about shortcuts, but about buying time intelligently. If you value practical history that still applies beyond textbooks, subscribe to Backyard Wisdom and, share this episode with others who believe the past still has something useful to teach. Real resilience comes from understanding what worked when failure was not an option.